The old man's hands trembled as he opened his worn leather wallet. The bills inside were wrinkled, the kind that had seen too many pockets, too many struggles. Across the counter, a young bank manager chuckled quietly, nudging his colleagues. To them, the man in the faded plaid shirt and straw hat looked like someone who had lost his way, someone who didn't belong in a bright, glass-walled bank filled with suits and polished shoes. But what none of them knew, not the laughing manager, not the smiling tellers, was that the man standing before them wasn't there to make a withdrawal. He was there to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. Before we begin this story, don't forget to subscribe to Whispers of Goodness, where every story reminds us that kindness still exists in this world. If this story touches your heart, give it a like, share it with someone who needs a little light today, and tell us in the comments what kindness means to you. It was a warm Friday afternoon in the small town of Ridgefield. The sun poured through the glass doors of the downtown bank, catching dust in the air that danced like tiny sparkles. The line was long that day, people cashing paychecks, paying bills, rushing before the weekend began. At the back of the line stood an elderly man named Samuel. His clothes were clean but clearly old. The edges of his sleeves were frayed, and his shoes had more patches than polish. In his hand, he held a small, cracked wallet, the kind you'd expect to see in an antique store rather than a bank. Samuel moved slowly, smiling politely to the people ahead of him. Some smiled back. Others looked away. He didn't mind. He'd learned long ago that people often judge before they understand. When his turn finally came, he approached the counter. Behind it stood Mark, the branch manager, young, confident, and dressed sharp enough to look like he stepped out of a magazine. Beside him were two tellers, laughing about something on a phone. Before noticing the old man, Samuel tipped his straw hat politely. "Good afternoon, son. I'd like to check if I still have a balance here." Mark smirked. "Sure, sir," he said with a tone that was polite only on the surface. "May I have your account number?" Samuel handed over a small, folded piece of paper. His hands shook a little as he did. Mark looked at the paper, then at Samuel's old wallet, then back at his colleagues. They exchanged looks. "All right, let's take a look," Mark said, typing on his computer. A moment later, he frowned. "Sir, it looks like this account has been inactive for quite some time." Samuel nodded slowly. "That's all right. I just wanted to be sure." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a few bills. "I was hoping to deposit this, maybe reactivate it." The bills were crumpled, maybe a few 20s, a 10, and a 5. Mark couldn't help but laugh quietly. "Sir, this is hardly enough to make a balance worth keeping." His laughter drew the attention of a few customers nearby. Samuel looked at him calmly. "Well," he said softly, "sometimes it's not about how much you have, but what you do with it." The young manager leaned forward, smirking. "Tell you what," he said. "If you have a balance in this account, I'll pay you double myself. But if you don't, maybe you should consider opening an account somewhere else." The tellers chuckled. It seemed harmless to them, just a little office joke. But the room felt colder now, the air tighter. Samuel didn't argue. He just smiled faintly. "All right, son. That's fair enough." Mark clicked through the system again, pretending to look busy. "Yep," he said loudly, "nothing here. No balance, no recent activity. Guess I won't have to pay you double, huh?" Samuel nodded. "I see." He reached out to take his paper back, but before he could, a deep voice from behind startled everyone. "Actually, Mark," the voice said, calm but firm, "you do owe this man double." Mark turned around. Standing near the entrance was Mr. Thompson, the regional director, the man who oversaw dozens of branches, including this one. Everyone froze. Mr. Thompson rarely visited without warning. "Sir, I didn't know you were here," Mark stammered. Mr. Thompson's eyes, however, were not on Mark. They were on Samuel. He walked over, smiling warmly, and extended his hand. "Mr. Adams," he said, "it's been a long time." The old man smiled back. "Good to see you, too, Daniel." Mark's mouth fell open. You know him?" Mr. Thompson chuckled. "Know him? Mark, this is Samuel Adams, the man who built this bank. He founded it 35 years ago before retiring. The systems we use today, the values we're supposed to stand for, all started with him. The room fell silent. The laughter died instantly. You could hear a pin drop as Samuel looked at the young manager with kind eyes. "I didn't mean to cause a scene," he said gently. "I just wanted to see how the people running my old bank treated those who might not look like much." Mark's face turned pale. "Sir, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize." Samuel held up his hand. "It's all right, son. You didn't know. But maybe now you do." Mr. Thompson looked around at the staff. "Mr. Adams may not come in with fancy clothes, but his kindness built this place from the ground up. Every customer, rich or poor, was treated with respect because that's what he believed in." Then Samuel smiled and reached for his wallet again. He pulled out a checkbook, old but neatly kept. "Mark," he said softly, "you made me a promise. You said you'd pay double if I had a balance. I believe I do." He wrote a check, slowly and carefully, and slid it across the counter. The number on it made Mark's eyes widen. It was $250,000, made out to the bank's community fund. "This," Samuel said, "is for the people who could use a little help, maybe families struggling to pay rent, or small business owners trying to stay open. Use it well." The room erupted in quiet gasps. Mark looked completely stunned. "Sir, I don't know what to say." Samuel gave a gentle smile. "Say you'll treat the next person who walks through that door with kindness. That's all the payment I need." From that day on, the atmosphere in that branch changed. Mark apologized personally to every customer waiting in line that day. He even started a kindness account, a small program where employees donated to help local families in need, and as for Samuel Adams, he disappeared as quietly as he had arrived. No news stories, no headlines, just the quiet legacy of a man who believed that true wealth isn't measured in numbers, but in hearts touched by kindness. Weeks later, a framed photo appeared in the bank's lobby. It showed Samuel standing beside a young Mr. Thompson decades earlier, breaking ground on what would become the town's most trusted bank. Beneath it were engraved words that read, "Kindness is the currency that never loses value." Customers noticed the change. The tellers smiled more genuinely. The coffee station was stocked with fresh brews again. There were small baskets for donations near the door. The place felt alive again, like it carried a soul, and sometimes, when the sun hit the counter just right in the afternoon, Mark swore he could almost see Samuel's reflection, that soft smile, that straw hat tilted slightly to one side, reminding him to stay humble, to stay kind. Kindness doesn't always come from grand gestures or deep pockets. Sometimes, it comes from the courage to see people for who they truly are, not what they look like. Samuel Adams didn't walk into that bank to humiliate anyone. He walked in to remind them, and us, that how we treat others when no one's watching says more about us than anything else ever will. So the next time you meet someone who looks like they've had a rough day, remember Samuel's lesson: kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who might need a reminder today. And remember, here at Whispers of Goodness, we believe that every act of kindness whispers a story worth hearing.